Welcome into part 2 of episode 14 of Red Zone Talk. We got more football to talk about, folks, all right? I hope you didn't think you were getting off easy with 50 minutes because that's not how we roll around here, all right? We've got headlines, we've got bets, and it's football. Yeah, it's time to talk football. So,
It is. We're gonna jump into some headlines here and then do our bets to finish out this episode. Um, First one I want to talk about is CJ Stroud a legitimate MVP candidate? Um, I think it's an interesting conversation at the very least.
it is. I would agree. I think as of right now he is.
hmm
I think again not the same
Top
conversation
five or top like where are you putting them?
in the MVP conversation right now.
Yeah. Top five, top three, top
Doing
one.
doing no research into this beforehand, I'd say top five, but like I think you might be able to talk me into top three. Honestly,
I think he's top five. I think top five's fair.
yeah, I'm perfectly okay with that. It it's not the same conversation as we had about Brock Purdy being an MVP candidate, but I think the same qualifiers apply. Of like he's got to be pretty damn good the whole way through, and somebody else can't come in and steal it. I think it's going to be very easy for someone to come in and just kind of yank it from him if it lines up right. But the way he's playing right now, like if the Texans make the playoffs, right? Say they win the division. Texans win the division, the Jags still win 10 games, but say the Texans somehow win 11 and take that
hmm
division. CJ Stroud is continuing to play the way he is right now. I mean, it's impossible to deny the conversation at that point, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I think if they win the division, I think it definitely opens it up more. Um, I mean, my top 5 for MVP right now is kind of wild. It's a little bit all over the place. I'm gonna give them in no specific order. This is my top 5 right now: Tyreek Hill, C.J. Stroud, Miles Garrett, Lamar Jackson, AJ Brown. That's my top 5 right now for MVP.
I saw somebody do that last week, and he ranked him, and AJ Brown and Tyreek were 1 and 2 in that order, and I was like, holy shit.
They're on such a crazy pace because I think they're both over 1,000 yards so far this season. Yeah. Tyreek is at 1,075 yards. AJ Brown is at 1,005. Like
Damn.
they are on pace to put up absolute monstrous numbers. They both are, and they were at 1,000 last week, which is like pretty early. And they both had buys last week. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, no,
my,
you're
yeah.
Miami definitely had their buy-in, or yeah, and Philly definitely had theirs too. Yeah,
I was like
100%. They both had
Philly.
buys.
Philly had. I know Philly had theirs because all my fantasy football teams were struggling because I do nothing but draft Eagles players.
I think it's
Um,
a solid. I've thought about that, and people are always like, "Oh, don't stack up your bye weeks." And I saw the theory of like just draft
suck
all
for
the
a week.
same. Yeah,
Yeah.
just lose one game and be fucking dominant elsewhere. And also, while we're on the topic of fantasy football, just to go off hinge for a second. A special fu to you, my friend, because you're obviously my fantasy kryptonite, definitely on ESPN. I haven't
Yeah.
logged into Sleeper in forever. I'm in 5 ESPN fantasy football leagues. I had a rough week last week, but before last week, 8-1, 7-2, 7-2. I have two teams that are 4-5 and 5-4. Guess which two leagues you're in?
Oh, those leagues.
Yeah, you're in the two leagues that I'm sucking in. The three leagues you're not in, I'm fucking kicking shit in right now.
I beat you in sleeper last week. I did look that up. I kicked your ass in sleeper last week, and
I
then
haven't
it
set
was a
my
bad
lineup in
game
God
though.
knows how long.
We were both pretty bad that league, and then in the one of the leagues that I'm in with you, I think in both of those leagues I'm in first or second. I think I'm
Yeah,
seven
you're
and
my
two in both of those.
you're my kryptonite in those ESPN leagues right now. I'm just kicking shit in the leagues you're not in right now, but I'm
Yeah.
struggling where you're at. So
But yeah, this is the point being is this is the year that the MVP conversation is the most open I think it's ever been.
yeah,
Um, it's open for anyone to run away with it. Miles Garrett, I think, is unfortunately the least likely to win it, but he has
yeah,
honestly probably been the most dominant and the most deserving of it. He just looks like a freak out there.
yeah,
This is a year where if like TJ Watt had a TJ Watt season, like he would have won MVP. And like this
yeah,
is like the closest I think we're gonna see it. Um,
yeah.
without it. I mean, I
Because
think Miles Garrett hits the 20 sack mark, which I think is possible. I think he's at 11 so far.
yeah,
Um, I think it's interesting. I think he's in the conversation for sure.
I mean, you think about every quarterback that we usually have in this conversation, you're like, well, I'm kind of struggling, right? Like,
Yeah.
Pat, Patty's not playing his best football. Lamar has struggled as of late. He definitely has struggled finding the end zone as of
Yeah.
late. Joe Burrow's had a down year. Like Jalen Hurts hasn't played fantastic, not an
Yeah.
MVP level. So it's by far and away the year of the non-quarterback if somebody were to go get it. But I will say, right, it's the quarterback's award. Somebody kicks it on for 8 weeks, they're gonna run away with this
Yeah.
fucking award pretty easily, you know.
And I think if Tyreek cracks the 2,000-yard mark, I think it's really or AJ does it, I
If
think it makes
either of
it
them,
even
yeah,
yeah, I think it makes it really interesting for them. Um, for those of you wondering why we're saying it's such a weird quarterback year, let me read you the top 5 leaders in passing yards right now. You ready for this list? It
I
is
am.
Sam Howell at 1, CJ Stroud at 2, Tua at 3, Josh Allen at 4, Jared Goff at 5. Um, and I really think one of those guys can win MVP, and I don't think the rest can. Uh,
Yeah, only one of those guys would you say are top 5 quarterbacks for this year? Hell, you probably only say one of those guys are top 10 quarterbacks before the year.
yeah,
Be Josh
and
Allen.
Josh Allen, and yeah, they're all climbing in their way. And I think for CJ, as much as he might not be on the top team, he's going to be on the team that makes the biggest leap, right?
Yep.
I think the Texans won 2 games last year. Does that sound right?
I mean, yeah, they had the number 2 overall pick,
Two overall
so
pick. Yeah, it was 2 or 3, maybe it was
two,
four.
three, maybe 4 max. And
Yeah,
right now, I'd say that the coach of the year plays in Houston right now as well. I think D'Amico Ryans has got to be up for that award, in my opinion.
for sure. I think it's got to be him. Especially if they make the playoffs, I think CJ Stroud really solidifies a chance. And long as he keeps playing like he's been playing, because he has been just and he's winning, but he's not winning like a rookie wins, right? He's not
Yeah,
winning by a great defense and playing conservative. He is out gunslinging people.
yeah. He
Head to head with Tampa Bay, had no issue just going toe to toe
yeah.
with that team.
Not a 2 minute drive, a minute and a half, a 45-second drive with one timeout to go score, take the lead. Like
Yeah.
he is playing football. Truthfully, right now, CJ Stroud is inevitable. I think that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
Like
It's definitely
he's
been different to see for sure.
yeah, he is getting his. There is no doubt about that right now. So
Cool.
yeah,
Cool.
I think we're in a it's a really weird year all around. Like no quarterbacks
Mhm.
running away with it. And truthfully, I don't think anybody's running away with it, right? Like Tyreek and AJ have played great, but there's not a stud running back that's in this conversation right now.
The running backs are
CMC,
out.
Eckler, yeah,
Yeah.
nothing. There's nothing going on at the running back position, you know. Derrick Henry runs for 2,000 yards this year. He might be the guy to nab it, but it's not going to happen, you know.
I think
So
Christian McCaffrey's outrunning Derrick Henry. I think they're both at like 900 yards so
that
far. So like, it'd be
wouldn't
really, really
surprise
hard
me.
for them to hit the 2,000 mark for
Yeah,
sure.
would not
Um,
surprise me.
all right, next conversation we're gonna have. Let's jump into the conversation we had earlier. DTR is going to start for the Browns. Deshaun Watson is out for the rest of the season. You
Yeah.
don't like starting DTR here. You're more of a PJ Walker guy. You still feel that stance, or
Firstly, I want to talk about how fucking frustrating it is that that how much I talk about the Ravens defense that we allowed Deshaun Watson to come back on us the way he did with one shoulder is fucking embarrassing. Firstly, and it would wholly explain why he was 1 for 8 and an interception and 7 yards to start the game because he got hurt that early on, but. Yeah, and I think you kind of drew me back towards the DTR crowd with what we talked about in between the 2 episodes, but because everyone's talking, oh, you got to see what you have in the young guy. Well, last time you saw what you had in the young guy, you traded him to Arizona for a 5th round pick. Now he's a starter in Minnesota. He's kicking shit. You kind of wish you would have still had Josh Dobbs right about now.
he's not that young though, is he?
No, I mean he's in his 4th year probably, but and what's funny is that it's DTR playing so well in the preseason is what led to Josh Dobbs being traded. They didn't feel like they
Traded.
needed him. Um,
Josh Dobbs is 28.
Oh shit! I thought he was like 26, but
Yeah,
still,
no,
not old by any stretch. Yeah,
no.
you know, people are like, oh, you got to see what you have in the young guy. Deshaun Watson's on a fully guaranteed contract for another 4 years. So truthfully, I don't see. If anything, I think it creates a little bit of a tension, right? Because if DTR comes in and balls out, right? Say the Browns win the division somehow. They make the playoffs. And he plays some pretty convincing football down the stretch. Not that he's going to steal the job from Deshaun next year, right? But again, outside of the second half against Baltimore last week, Deshaun Watson has not played good football all year. He has
No.
not looked anywhere near worth the money. And if he wasn't being paid so much, I think conversations of benching him would have came up by now. The second half against Baltimore really did redeem him. He looked like Deshaun Watson in the second half, which terrifies me as a Ravens fan going forward. But if DTR comes in and balls out and then Deshaun starts slow next year, now there's animosity in your locker room. Do we want to go with DTR? Can you afford benching a guy that you gave a fully guaranteed contract to? Creates a lot of wormholes. And again, before you read PJ Walker's numbers for me this year, I felt like he gave them a better shot to win. I thought he was a very talented quarterback in Carolina. His XFL highlights are some of probably the best of anybody that played in that league. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely leaning more into the DTR camp after we talked about it off the air. Thank God for saving me of this embarrassing conversation because I was full tilt with PJ Walker beforehand. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think they're both. It's the worst of both situations. There, it really is. Like it's just not a great spot to be in. So I think that's tough, right? Like I think on both sides there, you've got a rookie who played well in the preseasons, not playing well now. Um, so you're kind of up against that. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
it's one of those ones that you got to figure out what you're gonna do.
I
Sorry, I'm
agree,
trying to
and it's
figure out this number here.
it's not a fucking easy spot at all. Um, so of course you're trying to figure that out. I'm reading updates on Thursday Night Football right now. Um,
Um, yeah. So let's talk about the other side of this here. Sorry, we're losing a little steam here. Feels like we need to build back up some momentum here. Um, is this the worst trade ever? I can't think of a trade where I think the conversation really is boiling down to two people that are in this conversation. I think it's Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, and it's tough to not say it's Deshaun just with the sheer volume of stuff they
it's
gave up.
Yeah, and I think the contract solidifies it to me. The
Yeah, it
contract is
makes it
what
even
is really
harder.
like the nail in the coffin that kind of swings it. Which again, we're not talking about the contract; we're talking about the trade. Um,
Yeah. No, I
but
mean, but
yeah,
it's part of it, right? Because like if the Broncos really wanted to, they could get out from underneath Russell Wilson. It wouldn't be easy to do, but it's something they could do. There's no situation where Deshaun Watson is not on the roster for the Browns for the next at least 3 years. Like
yeah, two if not three. Yeah,
his dead cap number next year is like $200 million, or
yeah.
you know
It's
what I
almost
mean?
like
Like
they it's almost like they fully guaranteed it or something.
yeah, they feel like
Um,
it's insane how rough that contract's going to be. Um, but I think it's honestly been. I thought it was a good move because I thought he was young. I thought he was going to play better. It's been nothing but disappointing.
yeah, the only downside was the off the field stuff that he was dealing with at the time of the deal. Other than that, this guy was consummate top five quarterback in the league. Like he was 3 or 4, and just about everybody's list, the lowest you'd see him would be like 6 when he was in Houston, right?
Yeah,
And so you're thinking you're locking that guy up, fully guaranteed, whatever it takes to keep him cool. Again, outside of the 2 quarters of football that they played last week in the second half, he has looked bad. Truthfully, like it's not
yeah,
that he hasn't played great, hasn't played elite, not good, bad. He's played bad football.
bad.
Um,
Yeah,
and kind of been carried by the defense up to that point. So why he decided to wait until a broken shoulder to play great football, I couldn't fucking tell you. But it sucks for Browns fans because you finally thought, we're like, wow, we have some momentum, right? He was 13 for 13 to start that second half, and he was not the sole reason that they came back against Baltimore, but he was the driving reason, in my opinion, no doubt in my head. And now all of a sudden, we're gonna have to wait a whole nother year to see him play football again. Kind of immediately robs him of that momentum. I do think it's the worst trade. The Russell Wilson trade. Now, if you asked me last year, it's Russell Wilson by a country mile because
yeah,
just the upside alone of Deshaun Watson. Deshaun wasn't playing great football last year either when he played after the 11-game suspension. But just the upside alone of Deshaun Watson outweighed how bad Russell Wilson was last year.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson's winning. They're on a 3-game win streak. They're winning football games. It's ugly. They're allowing 400 yards a game defensively, but they're winning football games, right?
We lost faith in Sean Payton early on in the season. Because it didn't go as well as everyone thought it was. I mean, we both kind of thought it would be similar to what it's been.
Yeah,
Honestly, they might have outperformed our expectations. I think you and I put on them, but
I would
um,
agree.
like Sean Payton is fixing the situation. It's not perfect necessarily, and I think another year of Sean Payton and being able to bring in the pieces he wants to bring in, I think that team could be fixed. Like that team isn't crazy for missing the playoffs for sure. So
Yeah, and again, and it's more impressive because people are like, oh, they're not blowing people out of the water. They're not putting up crazy numbers. I just told you, they're allowing 400. They are the worst defense by yardage marks. They're the worst defense in the league. They're allowing 400 plus yards on defense. It makes what him and Sean Payton are doing that much more impressive in my mind. That they're
yeah,
on this 3-game streak, right? And I get it. They got bailed out by 12 people on the field against Buffalo in a
wins a
year's
win.
time we're not talking about it, right? As long as that letter is in the left column where it says a W, not an L, who effing cares how we got here, right?
Yeah.
So I agree. I would say that they have outperformed expectations. Even if they were to lose out the rest of the way, I'd still think this 3-week window is more than I thought that we were going to see from them in this season as a whole.
Yeah. No, it's been interesting for sure. Cool. Let's jump into the next thing. Is there anything Justin Fields can do to save his job at this point?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. I don't think he should lose his job outright. I feel bad for the kid. I think he's still incredibly talented. And I understand the knocks on his game. I don't want to make it sit here and be like, he's great. I don't understand why they want to get rid of it. No, he's had his bad games. The injury definitely didn't hurt or didn't help him at all. But just with where they're drafting at and how many talented quarterbacks are going to be in this class, it's impossible for him to keep his job at this point. Like, I just don't. Now, if we were walking into last year's class with where we're at now, I don't think he probably loses his job outright. I don't think, to me,
Yeah.
Bryce Young or CJ Stroud would have blew me out of the water enough to move off of him. We've got that guy this year.
Well,
We
he
might have two or
didn't.
three of them. You know.
I mean, they traded out of the first pick. Like, Chicago is going to have back-to-back years where they have the first overall pick. Now, this year, it's not going to be their own pick more than likely. It's looking like it's going to be that Carolina pick. But
Mhm.
regardless, it's very rare for a quarterback to keep their job when they have back-to-back seasons. I mean, their own pick is still going to very easily be in the top 10. So,
Yeah.
um, unless he comes out and plays like an MVP level candidate, I just don't see a world where he saves his own job.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really possible with the last, what are we like 6, 7, 8 weeks of the year that it's possible for him to come in and play that well to seal it.
Yeah. I mean, he's been
Um,
hurt the last couple weeks. Obviously, they've been starting what is it? Tyson starts with a B. I can't
yeah,
remember his name.
I can't pronounce it,
Badge something.
Badgerint
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
I will say that with where Carolina was at, I do think that I don't know how Darnell Wright's doing right now in Chicago at tackle. I have no idea how that pick's panned out. Trading back that one spot from 9 to 10 and not taking Jalen Carter, I think, is a move that will haunt them for a while. I understand it
For
wasn't the
sure.
biggest need in the world. You do not pass on a player of that caliber. And to me, that's like a microcosm of exactly what's wrong with the Bears. Is they're like, well, we don't need
Yeah.
it right now. I don't care. He might be the best player in the draft. You take him. Like, you draft him. You are in desperate need of superstar talent. He was sitting there, and what'd you say? You're like, I wonder. Let's give him to the best team in the NFC instead. Fuck you,
I I
Chicago.
I I will say this, like they might not have had the locker room around him to build him up to have success. So
Yeah, I
I
agree. The
think
situations drastically affect what he could have went to Chicago, got into some trouble, and been off the field right now. It's
yeah, like
possible,
it is possible. So they might have been evaluating it from that standpoint of like, listen, we don't have the guys around him to like bring him in and say, hey, like, listen, this is what you're gonna be. We're in Philadelphia, man. If there was one team that's really sure, like it was, we talked about it a lot. It was that team. So I don't completely blame them when it comes to that. So Yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up. Let's jump into bets here. If you or
Ooh.
anyone you know is struggling with a gambling addiction, contact the Problem Gambling Helpline at 800-522-4700. Professionals are available 24 hours a day to take your call. Help is available at no cost to the problem gambler or their concerned others. Big week for you and I last week. Both went 3-0. Did you update the records when you
I
did
did
this?
update the records. Yes.
Okay. That brings me to a 13 and 16 here. Not a great year for me overall, but inching back closer. I had the Cardinals plus 1.5 versus the Falcons, Steelers -3 versus the Packers, and 49ers -3 versus the Jags. All three hit. I was pretty confident on most of these, and I'm just happy that my Falcons pick hit finally. I finally
Yeah,
go
because you
against
picked
that
against him.
team, and it finally worked out in my favor. Thank God.
That's crazy. Yeah, I've been riding hot this year. I'm 17-9, and I think it's our first push in our show's history this year. I don't remember us having a push in the
I
past.
don't think we have had a push in the past. Yeah.
So 17-9-1. I had Minnesota +3 versus New Orleans. Josh Dobbs magic continues again. Vegas versus the Jets. Aiden O'Connell and Antonio Pierce get it done against one of the better defenses in the league. And then again, we shared that pick, San Francisco versus Jacksonville. I'll tell you what, as much as I said I absolutely could not fucking stand that slate last week, and that's why we ended up sharing a game, combined 5-0 between the five picks we made. Pretty damn good week, if I do say so
Yeah.
myself.
It was a good week. All right, my three picks this week is going to be Texans -4.5 versus the Cardinals. Um, I think this is an overcorrectment of Kyler Murray coming back. He didn't look great. He played well enough to win for sure, but I don't think he played phenomenal. So I like the 4.5 on the Texans there. I think they're a hot team that's playing really really well. Steelers +1.5 versus the Browns. This game is going to be the battle of the defenses, right? Like this,
Mhm.
both offenses I expect to be very bad, and you're going to give me 1.5 points with the guy who's with the team that's not starting the rookie quarterback. I will always, always, always take those in this situation. I love DTR. I think DTR is a great quarterback. This is going to be a brutal matchup for him. Like this is a tough defense to go up against. So I will always, always take the team with the points there. Seahawks -1 versus the Rams. This one felt like a trap to me. Felt way, way too close. Seattle's been playing pretty good this year, and the Rams obviously have been up and down, disappointing. Um, Stafford's expected to start. I don't know if he actually will or not. I know he's on his way back, but he's still fighting those injuries. So I like
I think you're
Seattle in
smart to
this
grab
game.
it at -1 because I think if he goes down, this becomes -3, -5.
Yeah,
Probably
very
four and a
quickly.
half is where it'll max out if I had to guess. But I do like your picks. I almost took the Steelers and Browns. I decided to go a different direction, and I know what you're saying. It's
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 such a
32 and a half.
ridiculous number. Oh,
Is it a
such a
ridiculous
crazy
number?
number.
Yes. What I'm thinking is I'm 17-9-1. I just went 3-0 again last week. I think it's my third, if not fourth week I've went 3-0, which is fucking insane.
Ugh.
Um, I'm getting aggressive. All right. Browns, Steelers under 32 and a half. It was the wagon for me last year was the AFC North unders. You're talking about it. The Steelers have one of the worst offenses in the game. DTR's coming in. And again, the Browns defense is no slouch. If Pittsburgh struggles against anybody, they're damn sure going to struggle against Myles Garrett and the boys. And then on the other side of it, well coached, a couple stars. Pittsburgh's defense has not been playing up to their level of football. It is a rookie quarterback. This feels like a, a good old 14-6 game, in my
Yeah,
opinion, or a
it really does.
17-6. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see we see like two combined touchdowns this game. Honestly, I think it's going to be an ugly game of football if you like scoring offenses. If you love watching defenses and punters work, make sure you go get NFL League Pass because you're definitely not going to see these two teams on NFL Red Zone much. I don't think this weekend.
True.
Um, Minnesota +2.5 versus Denver. I'm betting on a little bit more Josh Dobbs magic, and I think the Denver Broncos streak finally comes to an end. All three of my picks are fucking nuts this week. I probably the least confident I felt in this, but again, I'm trying to be a little more aggressive, not trying to play it safe, which I think has bit me in the ass the one time I did it earlier this year. So again, take it with a grain of salt. But I got a lead to play with, and I'm gonna goddamn play with it. Okay. Yeah, Minnesota
Yeah,
plus 2.5. I think Dobbs has just looked good. He's looked very good, and I think Minnesota is surging a hair. Is
they
Justin
are.
Jefferson back from the IR? I don't think he's playing this week.
I don't think he's playing this
Regardless,
week. If he is, yeah, I don't think he is back though. I could be wrong.
but again, this is a team that went from 1-4 and is now rallying around a Kirk Cousins injury, and if they can survive another week or two and get Justin Jefferson back, they have a serious chance to challenge for the division. I don't think they'll catch Detroit. I think Detroit's going to be playing some good football the rest of the way. But if Detroit slips up for a couple weeks and Minnesota keeps surging, it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to catch it up. They're damn sure. And again, there's not a ton of great NFC wildcard teams. This is a team that could slip in there against literally every single odd possible. Lose your starting quarterback, lose your star receiver for half the year, trade for a guy in the middle of the year, still make the wild card in the NFC would be an absolute nuts after a 1-4 start. They would have beaten everything that's been put in front of them. It'll be one of the best stories, I think, in NFL history for a wild card team.
Yeah, Justin
Um,
Jefferson's still on IR, but yeah, they're on a 5-game win streak here. So
that's not. I did not know that. That's nuts.
yeah,
With two
five.
separate quarterbacks.
Yeah, with two different quarterbacks, and yeah, they started out 1-4. They're on a 5-game heater. So it is an interesting game. I think that's going to be a really exciting game to watch. A lot of games with high spreads. We of course hate high spreads. Well, yeah,
We usually do.
we usually do.
Yeah, we usually do. That is alluding to my third pick. I'm probably buying a little bit too much in Antonio Pierce hype right now, especially with how the Miami offense has been cooking this year. I have the Las Vegas Raiders plus 12.5 versus the Miami Dolphins. It's just now crossing in my head that the Dolphins are also coming off of a bye week against a Raiders team that's not the most talented in the world. But again, I think the Raiders have something cooking. All right. Am I putting way too much stock into it? 110%. Yes, I am. All right. But I am willing to put my money where my mouth is and ride. They are going to lose this game. I do not think Antonio Pierce and the Vegas Raiders are going to win this game. I
Think they
think
keep it
they can
close
keep
though.
it. I think they can keep it to 10. I think they can keep it to 10 to 7 and kind of make the Dolphins work a little, maybe make them sweat a little bit on their sidelines. But yeah, if Antonio Pierce and the Raiders win this thing, man, sign the extension now. Okay, just let's completely overreact to it. Give him the 10-year, call it a deal, move on. But not seriously.
Yeah,
But
you're more likely to. I'll buy that it could be a 10-pointer and they cover. I like
that
now when you say it like that, I'm like, it's not crazy. I just hate lines like that because it's like
I 100% hate it. We've never touched them. There's a reason we never touch them because it's insane.
as a fan of the game, the other thing I also despise is when it's you're betting, right? So you're invested in the game, you're watching a game. You're not a fan of either team, right? But you bet on
Mhm.
it, so you want to watch it. And then you're like, "Oh no, this team's down 14 now. Shit." Like that doesn't it's just not fun. Like to me
Fair.
that's not fun when it's like,
Please just
"Come
go
on,
kick a field goal as time
go
expires.
kick a field goal. Woo! They kicked a field goal us by 11. Woohoo!" Like
That's what I need. Like
I
how
don't enjoy
McVay,
that.
how Vegas phoned McVay in to kick that field goal and cover. I need them to go
Oh
make the phone
god.
call, have them kick the field goal as time expires, just to make it an 11-point loss, and we'll call it a win. All right,
It
in the
was
books
all in
for
the
me.
script. That's how the script works.
Yep, you're goddamn right it was. Well, you got
We'll
anything
see you
else for
guys.
these
No, I don't
folks?
think so. If you enjoy it, if you're liking the shorter content, make sure to give us a share
Yeah,
with a
let us
friend.
know
Yeah, like
if you.
if you want us to go back to the long episodes, we will. But I've got nothing but good feedback about the short episodes. I don't know about you. People are liking that's a little bit more bite size, easier to consume. But share half the episode. Throw somebody a line. Say, hey, listen. Here's 30 minutes of a podcast. Give it a listen. And then if they
Yeah,
like it, they'll explore more. So
all your gambler friends out there that didn't want to sit through an hour of us rambling to get to the 10 minutes of bets at the end, it's right
yeah,
here for you. You just got to listen to 15 minutes of us talking about headlines you can hear and throw all your money away at Vegas plus 12.5. Okay. You can do it just like I will this weekend. Okay.
ride the wave, ride the wave.
Ride the goddamn wave, folks. Well, that's going to do it for episode 14, folks. We will see you next week for episode 15, hopefully with another green week of bets. but that only time will tell how we'll do again this week. So that's going to do it for Tim and I. We'll see you guys next week for episode 15. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you then.